Welcome to Toni Time, talk show for real talk with real people. And I'm the host, Toni Morris. Today our show is going to be a little bit different. We normally have a guest with us, but today, in the wake of the massacre up in Connecticut, we wanted to focus on something different. We wanted to talk about that. We want to talk about real issues related to it, whether it be gun control, mental health, and what people can do in their community to ensure that we can decrease our children from being subjected to this. So let's begin. Yesterday morning, we heard our children went to school in Connecticut. They began to talk about Christmas. They knew they had 11 days before Christmas. They were excited. They went to school. They had pictures they were going to draw. Because at this time of year, that's what kids in the age from 5 to 10 are focused on. So that was their focus. That was their teacher's focus. That was their parents' focus. That's what it was all about. And then, tragedy. A lone gunman walks into the school. He not only shoots the principal and teachers, but he also shoots 20 children. 20 children between the ages of 5 and 10. Why did this happen? As we begin to look and we find out information, and it's still ever changing because, again, this was something nobody expected. We've learned that this was a 20-year-old man who lived in a community with his mother. He actually went to the same school, who went in, shot up 28 people, and then turned the gun on himself. And now the question begins as to why. We've talked to family members. We've talked to his friends. The family members are now saying that he may have had some mental health concerns. Friends are saying that this was not this type of person. He was quiet. He was a loner. He didn't socialize much. They knew this. But at this time now, we now have to question what it was that made him think this was okay to do. So now, as we begin, we're going to talk about some of the issues that I've been listening to on Twitter, on Facebook, people having conversations now. One of the topics we're discussing at this time is gun control. After every shooting that we've had, whether it was Columbine, whether it was Virginia Tech, whether it was recently up in Oregon, or was it in Colorado when we had the movie massacre, after each shooting, we've talked about gun control. We've talked about it for a few weeks, and then it slowly goes away, and we don't discuss it anymore. We know there are laws on the books that require the states to have specific criteria for people to get guns. But yet and still, we keep hearing that people are getting guns. We keep seeing that guns are getting into the hands of people who commit these crimes. Why is this happening? Could a possibility be that although we have the laws on the books, they're not enforced? Could it be that we are so comfortable where we don't think it ever happened in our community that we really don't enforce the laws? That's a possibility. We need to look at that. But one thing I do know is that when we talk about gun control, we can't just say, oh, get the guns off the street, because we know no matter what, people will find a way to get access to guns. It is what it is, to be real. So what can we do to decrease these incidents from occurring? Well, first of all, we need to begin looking at where the guns are coming from. Why aren't we talking about that? Where are these guns coming from? Are you saying United States of America, we're manufacturing all these guns that we find? No. So where are the guns coming from? We need to know that. Then we need to find out and hold accountable the people who are selling guns. Are you doing the regular background checks you're supposed to do, or are you cutting corners? Are you making sure that the people, when they come in, are the people who they really say they are? Or are they just, anybody off the street wanting to get a gun? In this incident, the person who did the shooter, he didn't have the guns. The guns came from his parents. The parents acquired the guns legally. So now we're going to also have to look at responsibility. Responsibility, because as gun owners, we have a responsibility. When we purchase these guns, we need to be able to secure them to ensure that our family members, our children, if criminals break into a house, they do not have access to our guns. That's something we have to do. That's the responsibility of gun ownership. But I don't hear us talking about that much. What about education? Do we educate people who are gun owners? Do we educate people who have access to guns? Do we make sure they understand the ramifications of using a gun? Do we make sure they understand the finality of when you shoot a gun? Because it's not only about having a gun, purchasing a gun. It's about what you do when you have that gun. Do we do that? Do we talk to our kids from little up to adulthood that when you have a gun, this is what could happen? Because every time we hear about these incidents, we have people who for some reason feel it's okay to use a gun. And it's okay to shoot up people. This is what we're now faced with. Well, right now we're going to stop and we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about responsibility. And then we're going to go into some other topics related to this issue. Again, this is Toni time. We want you to sit back and relax, stay tuned. And when we come back, we're going to get some more real information that could benefit you. Thank you. Welcome back to Toni time. Before we left, we was talking about responsibility. It is our responsibility also in our community to be aware of what's going on around us. Another issue that has come up is mental health. After every shooting, that's the first area we look at. Well, what was the person's mental health status? Okay? And we hear things like, well, yeah, they were receiving services. Yes, we knew they had this issue. Yes, we knew they had that issue. But my question to you is, what was done about that issue? Again, with responsibility, it is our responsibility. Earlier today, I was watching a newscast, and I heard somebody say, we need to have mental detectors instead of metal detectors. And I thought that was fascinating to hear that, because reality is we have mental detectors. They're called teachers, law enforcement, family members, people in a church. Those are mental detectors. How are they mental detectors? Because you are the people who are coming in contact with these individuals. You know what's going on. Because after a shooting, when people go and start looking in the background, they're going to you and you're saying, well, we knew this person. We knew he was like this. We knew he was, an outcast. He was very quiet. He stayed to himself. We knew all these things. But the question now to you is, what did you do about it? How could you have helped? What could you have done to prevent this? What could you have done to maybe provide some assistance? Because for the most part, when we're looking at people with mental health issues, there are stresses in their life that are causing them to have difficulty. So how do we reduce those stresses? This is nothing new. When a father loses his job and he's the main provider and it becomes overwhelming, he decides, okay, it's better. Since I cannot take care of my family, what I need to do is to not only kill my family, but myself. Because at this time, the reality is I can't do it. And so since I can't do it, we don't need to be here. That's the reality of it. And we don't know what each person's stressor that can cause him or her to tip over to the other side. But we can do something about it. We have mental health facilities around the country. We have mental health providers around the country. But in the United States of America, we still have a stigma against mental health. We don't want to talk about it. It's taboo. Keep it in your own home. This is what we do. Instead of talking about it, getting out and finding help for people, we keep it to ourselves. This climate has got to change. We can no longer do this. We lost 20 children yesterday. And now we're saying the person has mental health issues. We had a Congresswoman, Gabby Giffords, who was shot. Her life was forever changed because somebody with a mental health issue. And again, we always heard people say, we knew about it, but what did you do about it? So moving forward, what can we do? First of all, we can start talking about things. We can start supporting mental health. We can start making that a focus in our communities, in our states, in our country. Let's put mental health at the top of the list of what we need to do to prevent this from happening. This is not a one-time incident. Is it going to continue? Yes, because as long as we don't address the issues, this is what will happen. Guns alone are not the problem. We have other problems that are going on. When we look at our economics, we look at education system. These all work together. These are all factors that could have possibly contributed to 20 children losing their lives. So what do we need to do? That's the question you need to ask yourself. What can you do to prevent this from happening in your community? I know you're sitting there right now, and in your mind, you could think of many people around you who you know either have mental illnesses themselves or they have family members. You know women who are married to men who are abused because their husband have anger management issues. We know men who are being abused by women because women have mental health issues. But again, what do you do about it? Do you just close your eyes and say, that's their issue? It's very easy to say that's their issue until their issue becomes our issue. And this is what happened yesterday. That family's issue now is the country's issue because we lost 20 children. We lost 20 children yesterday between the ages of 5 and 10. How many times is this going to happen before we get serious about this? How many times is this going to happen before we start taking action? And the federal government alone cannot do it. We, the citizens of the United States of America, have got to step up and take responsibility for our own country, for our own cities, for our own towns. We have got to do that. The federal government alone cannot do it. They don't need to do it. It is our responsibility. So now when we look back on this tragedy in Connecticut, we need to also ask ourselves what we could have done to stop this. We've had many things. Columbine. Why didn't we move faster after Columbine? Why didn't we move faster after the Aurora, Colorado movie theater? Why didn't we do something just this week when we had the shooting in Oregon? Nobody was talking about mental health. Nobody talked about it because, again, we still have this stigma in our community, in our country, where we're not going to discuss it. Well, now it's on our table. We need to step up and start doing some things because this cannot continue. Yesterday, while this tragedy is going on in our local community, there was a report that at a high school, there was a 16-year-old who had a gun in his locker. He was arrested. Well, why does a 16-year-old feel that he or she needs to bring a gun to school to protect them? We have had reports, numerous reports of small kids taking weapons to school to defend themselves. Why do our children think this is possible? I would like to thank you today for watching Toni Time. I'm hoping something I said has touched you today. And I want to hear back from you. Log on to the website, post your comments, your concerns. Let me know what you're thinking because, again, it's about the dialogue that we have. If you don't speak up, who will? Thank you again, and you have a blessed day. And let's keep the members and family members and church members in the Newton, Connecticut community in our
when you've done all you can, and it seems like it's never enough. And what do you say when your friends turn away and you're all alone, all alone? Tell me, what do you give when you're giving your all and seems like you can't make it through? Well, you just stand, but when there's nothing left to do, you just stand, watch the Lord see you through. Yes, after you've done all just stand.